Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Small Bites. My name is Dr. Karen McDowell, and I'm here with my colleague Monique Champagne to talk to you about the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Now, you may be familiar with the MBTI. You may hear people spouting off letters, INTJ, ESFP, and you may have some familiarity with these letters, or you may have no idea what any of them mean. I love the Myers-Briggs. I think it is super interesting. It gives us lots of information. And one of my favorite things about it is that it is only a strengths inventory, meaning it's not trying to identify any flaws or any weaknesses or any areas that might be problems, but instead is only focused on identifying people's strengths. If you're familiar with our Small Bite series, you know that we do a YouTube video every week on a topic, and then we meet on Instagram Live on Wednesdays at noon to discuss those same topics. So please join us on Wednesdays, Instagram, 12 Central at The Gracious Mind, and tell us what you think about these topics and if there's any things you want us to talk about in our videos. So let's jump into the Myers-Briggs. Today, we're only going to talk about the first letter in the 4-letter code. So when you know your Myers-Briggs type, you get 4 letters. Today, we're going to talk about that first one. And in the next 3 videos after this one that I teach, we'll be talking about the other 3 letters as well. So we'll end up with a 4-part series on the Myers-Briggs. I love the MBTI. I think it gives us so much information. It can help us solve problems when we're trying to figure out how to communicate or collaborate with people. It can help us solve problems with that. It can help us structure our world and make decisions so that we're set up for success. It can also help you cultivate empathy and understanding for people that might have a different personality type than you. So again, this is only about strengths, and there is no right or wrong answer. According to the Myers-Briggs test, you are the expert on you. You're the one answering the questions. You're the one figuring out which feels more right for you. So you don't even have to take the formal test to know your type. Just listening to these videos and listening to me talk, you're probably going to kind of have a sense of where you fall. Research has shown that sometimes people's Myers-Briggs type, if they take the test at work, is different than if they take it at home, or if they take it in more stressful environments versus more comfortable environments. And that's totally normal. If you think about your own personality and how you might shift to respond to an environment, it makes sense that you would function differently. So the first letter in the Myers-Briggs is either going to be an I or an E. And it can be easy to think of these as one or the other. You're either an I or an E, but that's not how the Myers-Briggs is set up. The Myers-Briggs is set up on a spectrum. It's called a dichotomy. So we've got 2 ends of a spectrum, the I end and the E end, and then there's a whole range of experiences in between. So the Myers-Briggs isn't trying to tell you, oh, you're an I or an E. It's trying to tell you when you are stressed or when you are, most in need of having your batteries recharged or getting your needs met, that you're going to tend to lean one way or another. Some people may be very balanced in the middle. That's totally okay. So let's talk about that I and that E. What does that mean? Well, the first dichotomy, the first letter, indicates how you interact with the world around you, how you engage with the world. And the I stands for introvert, and the E stands for extrovert. Now, some people think that introvert means shy or quiet, and extrovert means loud and outgoing. And that's not really what it means in terms of the Myers-Briggs. In terms of the Myers-Briggs, what we're asking is, how do you get your batteries recharged? Introverts, when they're worn out, when they're tired, when they're stressed, introverts are going to need to withdraw. They're going to need to turn inward. So that might mean being alone or being with very few people. It might mean you need extra time when you take like lunch breaks. It might mean that quiet feels better for you than noise. And that's what's going to help you feel better. That doesn't mean that you don't like noise or that you don't want to be around people. It means that when you need to recharge, it's not people that are going to recharge you. It's inward quiet. On the other end of the spectrum is the E, the extrovert. And for those people, when they are tired or exhausted or need to be recharged, they're going to find themselves rejuvenated by being around more people, or by having more activity, or having music, or having stimulation. So again, it doesn't mean that an extrovert doesn't like downtime. It doesn't mean that an extrovert doesn't need quiet. They do. They need alone time. They need those things as well. And it doesn't mean they don't have the skill. They can absolutely hang out by themselves if they need to. What we're talking about is what fills you, what recharges your battery. How do you engage with the world around you in a way that rejuvenates you? Now, extroversion can be a little bit of a learned skill. We do live in a culture that rewards extroversion. So for example, when I used to be a teacher, I used to be a high school teacher, and one of the things we know from education research is that introverts don't raise their hands until they've thought of what they want to say. On the other hand, extroverts will raise their hand and then figure out what they want to say. Neither of those are bad ways of approaching anything. So when I was trained as a teacher and when I trained teachers, what we learn is that as an educator, when we ask a question, we wait. We don't choose the first hand that pops up because it's always the extrovert. So we want to make sure that introverts have time to provide their perspective or provide, their input. You can imagine that in a classroom, but now imagine that in a workplace. Imagine that you're having a work meeting or there's a problem that needs to be solved and everyone's brainstorming and everybody's got these ideas. The introverts in the room are gonna come up with their best ideas and probably some great ideas, but not at that pace and not that quickly. They're going to need a little bit more time to process before they're going to be willing to say what they're thinking. So in terms of leadership, knowing that people can function in different ways can help you control the environment so that everyone is getting heard. Similarly, if you know yourself to be an introvert, for example, you may have to very carefully and specifically set up your self-care time. So a great example of that is when I go teach somewhere. So sometimes I go and I do workshops or I'll do all-day lectures or I'll do things. And I am an introvert. I have to have alone time. I have to have quiet time to feel better and recharge. So that means when I go on a guest lecture for a day or something, I always have to say, is there a private room that I'll be able to go to occasionally? Is there a place I can eat my lunch alone? I just know I'm gonna need to be alone. Whereas an extrovert might wanna eat with the participants or might be like, I'm fine, I'll just hang out here with everybody. I know for myself that in the second half of the day, if you want me to be an awesome teacher, I'm gonna need a little bit of time in the middle of the day to nurture my introversion. So you can take the formal Myers-Briggs test and find out if you're an I or an E, or you can just listen to this video and say, I think that I tend to be more this way or I tend to be more that way. If you don't know, awesome, here's a great new thing to learn about yourself, because it will give you so much information about how you need to take care of yourself and also how others need to take care of themselves. So you're the expert, you decide, are you an E or are you an I, or are you an E/I, which means you're kind of balanced. All right, so that's the first letter in the Myers-Briggs. Hopefully you have a sense of whether or not you're an introvert or an extrovert. We are going to talk about it on Wednesday, Instagram Live at 12 noon Central. Monique will actually be talking about it and I'll be interpreting for her, so I'm looking forward to hearing what she has to say about it. Again, please join us on Instagram Live, drop your comments, chat with us. We want to know what you think. Tell us if you're an I or an E or a balanced IE. And then in part 2 of this series, we'll be talking about that second letter. Of course, you can always find us online at thegraciousmind.com. Lots of cool stuff on our website, including our gift shop, which lets you buy cool things and support our work at the same time. You can also find us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok. And please, here on YouTube, do subscribe and like and comment on all of those things. It helps our mission so much, and we really appreciate your feedback. Hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you on Wednesday.